morning. Good morning. Let's bring the energy up a little bit. Thank you for having me. Julia, thank you for inviting us to speak. Thank you for inviting me to tell our story. My name is Stephan Nicoleau. I'm the co-founder and managing director of FullCycle. I'm not a bullet point guy, so instead I like to have these images of planet Earth behind me when I speak. It reminds us of the beauty on this planet. It reminds me of what we're fighting for, what's important. This conversation about innovation can get very technical. And I thought I'd actually take it a different direction because it's really important that we, this community of doers and funders and operators, get on the same page about what it means to innovate in this very short period of time in which we have to do it. And I'm going to say something maybe a little controversial, but innovation for innovation's sake isn't going to help us. The plastic straw revolution isn't going to get us out of this mess. Sorry. It'll help. It'll bring awareness. It's important to reduce waste, but the innovation that we've got to bring to bear must be on a massive scale. It must be in infrastructure and technology that can be widely adopted and brought all around the world, globally, and now. So at FullCycle, we're a different kind of investment firm. We invest in technology that is climate critical and market ready, and sits in that nexus so that when we find tech, we find the operators that are the winners in a space, we can deluge them with resources, capital, funding, and put all that infrastructure in play now. So we have an internal slogan that says, now is better than new. So I'll submit to you two examples that I think point to this pretty clearly. The first is in 2009, Google X decided it was going to get into autonomous driving, autonomous vehicles. 2009. And Google, with all of its resources, put a lot of capital to work in this space, research and development. And then Uber came in. And then GE and GM and Daimler, Apple, even though they'll deny it. By a show of hands, who came here today in 2019 in an autonomous vehicle? There's always one, there's one. The reality is venture timelines are too long, and we don't have that kind of time to develop technology that will save us with a 12-year time window. And that 12-year time window is generous, right? It's a little icing, a little sugar coating on that one. So for us, the idea is to go into technology that can go into scalability now and to bring it to market as soon as possible. The other example I'll point to is about what it means to innovate where there is existing infrastructure, as Brent mentioned, and where there's opportunity to incrementally increase efficiency and scalability in existing science. So in that same year, in 2009, we thought, the global community thought, that the country of India would triple its use of coal by 2019. Triple. And people were really concerned about this. I mean, this is the second largest, most populous country in the world, tremendous economy, 3 times the use of coal would be devastating for our environment. But along the way, something started to happen in solar. And the incremental increases in efficiency and the incremental decreases in cost made it viable for solar to be adopted en masse in a country like India. And today, India has 40% more capacity from renewables than it does from coal. So the example there shows that if we deploy resources intelligently and with intention towards existing science that can scale and can be made more efficient, we can actually make a dent now, not later. And so that's a really important principle for us to keep at heart. And I want to make sure everyone's on the same page about that, because where we deploy our resources in 12 years is going to matter. We can no longer spray and pray. and hope that one of the things works. We've got to get very, very directive and intentional about where we deploy resources. Which brings me to my second point, which is right now, the global funding community, so every government, every DFI, every funder, every private institution is putting about $350 to $400 billion to work in energy infrastructure, renewable energy infrastructure. And we know now that that number that needs to be put to work to meaningfully make a dent and divert us from 2C to 1.5C is about 1.5 trillion. So we are way short. And even if we have an increase in those resources, we're still going to come up short. So someone yesterday said to me that in technology and infrastructure, it is an all hands on deck play. And I thought about that for a second. I said, it just doesn't feel right. I like this one. It just doesn't feel right. It's not all hands on deck. We are the hands on deck. It's more hands on deck, right? It's new hands on deck. It's a bigger deck. It's a deeper ship. It's more ships. That has to be our principle at heart if we're going to meaningfully put into play infrastructure that can actually impact climate. And so the second piece that people don't often talk about is financial innovation. What is it going to mean to deploy $2.5 trillion every year, compounding through 2050 to make a difference on a global scale? It's going to mean new financial products. It's got to mean new financing vehicles. It's got to be new counterparties at play. And it's got to mean entities that are existing in this space to diverting those resources in a way that's meaningful and at scale. And so for us at FullCycle, our first investment is in waste to energy. And this is not a new space, but the company in which we're invested, Sonova, has just that bit of incremental technology that permits us to say, well, we can scale this tech globally. We just need to deploy billions of dollars to do it. So that's what we're doing. And to do that, we need a platform in which you and you and you and you and you can meaningfully participate in the ownership and the economic incentives that exist in owning those assets. What I mean by that is if we're going to increase and broaden the number of people and the base of people and entities that participate economically in the solutions that will solve for climate change, it has to be economically viable. It has to be fruitful. We live in an economy. People are financially incentivized to participate. That's the idea behind what we're up to, and that's the principle at heart when we think about innovation. It's that we need to make sure that everyone can participate in the solutions that will save us, and that the solutions that will save us are those that are prioritized in a way that we're being intentional about. In other words, let's put a list together of where we want to attack first, where we can have the most meaningful impact. Paul Hawking's work at Drawdown is so impactful in this way because it gives us a roadmap. Whether or not you agree with the ordering and the listing doesn't matter. What it shows us is that you can make business plans and business models around the kind of technology that exists that will meaningfully sequester and abate enough carbon to change us and change our trajectory. So I'll leave you with this. Yesterday, Paul said that we are currently living in a world that no other human or no humans have ever lived in before. That like slapped me in the face. I was like, wait a minute, that's right. And you can look at that one of two ways, right? Even if you're being pragmatic about it, that can be pretty terrifying. We don't really know what's to come. I choose to look at it the other way, actually. I think that there's a tremendous opportunity at hand in this new world, right? We have an opportunity to rebuild the systems and make obsolete the 19th and 20th century infrastructure that, while it may have done very well for us to get us to this place, is no longer serving us, right? And that's really the opportunity here. And that's why innovation, framed correctly and mutually understood, collectively understood, is so important. We're so happy to be here and have this conversation, to spark it and we're thankful to have the stage to do it. We hope that everyone here will take that at heart and see what it will look like to participate in the solutions that will help us. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. Stephan, I'm going to start with you.
All right.
With climate change being one of the top threats to our health, economy, and the planet, you speak with so much passion. Can you give a brief description of what inspired you to pursue this portion of this work?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you the kind of the existential answer, right? I think everyone reaches a point in their lives where they say, well, what's the legacy that we're going to leave behind? And I frame it to say, when they look back 40 years from now at this room, what will they say we accomplished and tried to accomplish in facing this existential threat? Right? Did we waste time arguing whether or not climate change is real? Or did we actually just get to work chipping away at this problem that was coming for all of us?
Right.
And I've got a Wall Street background. I've managed a lot of money. I've been an investor for 10 years. My partner, Ibrahim Al-Husseini, who's the founder of FullCycle, has been a climate investor for 20 years. And in the conversations that we have, it really is about thinking how we can bring this body of expertise to something that we're really passionate about, really braiding together passion and what we're good at.
Right. I was very inspired when you said 12 years. We're actually working on some of our marketing materials for Earth Day and talking about the fact that we have 12 Earth Days left, right? So we can't wait 12.
Yeah.
We have to do something
Absolutely.
every day.
Absolutely.
So very good. Thank you so much. Steve, Americans are starting to take notice of the immediacy of the problem. We see this in evidence quite frequently. How do you plan to use your data and visualizations to draw them in? How are you going to give them access to it? Or are you going to do it through business opportunities, meaning businesses?
Right. So National Geographic is, most people think of it as the magazine with the yellow border and, and all the photography and everything else, right? And the maps, the fold-out maps that are in the things, right? And that's all great, and National Geographic has had lots of stories about environment and stuff like this. So National Geographic Society, which is the exploration society that created the magazine to fund the expeditions, essentially. Our strategy is that, as Stephan was just saying, the need is now, right? So, and there are so many organizations who are focused on mobilizing the global public and informing and then hopefully mobilizing the global public, that's great. But there are decisions that need to be made now. And the strategy for doing that is that there are plenty of very forward-leaning, very entrepreneurial folks who have made fantastic investments in conservation areas around the world. National Geographic Society has a number of really close partners who have worked on these things. Chris Tompkins from Tompkins Conservation and African Park Networks and Gorongosa Park in Mozambique, which just got hit with the huge hurricane. Those parks and the other last wild places that we're trying to put in place to preserve the best of the remaining pristine wilderness, they need tools now. Just like you say, we need to convince people now. We need to show people now how much value is in these things. And so our strategy is to go to those senior decision makers now and give them the tools that they need to show off what they've got, or to have data-driven decision-making about what should they protect next.
Right.
And then but then provide them with the sort of narrative material that they need to explain to their stakeholders the decisions that they're making. Because everybody does like a good story. So having that emotionally engaging storytelling as well helps you make a decision, but also helps you explain to others why you made the decision that you did.
Right. Data visualization is so powerful. So thank you for your work in that area. Brent, obviously blue carbon is considered by many to be new technology. What other things do you see on the horizon, or ways that you want to expand the use of it?
Well, the reason I like to talk about the numbers is I think we need to understand that we're talking about mitigating tens of gigatons a year, not thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions or even hundreds of millions or even 1 gigaton. We're talking tens of gigatons year after year. We need the money to pay for it. We need the political will and all that. And that isn't happening at all. Nowhere. You know, the world governments have spent billions of dollars with the oil industry trying to capture CO2 and purify it and liquefy it and inject it underground. And they haven't even got to 5 million.
Right.
Remember, there's 1,000 millions in 1 gigaton.
Right.
And so you can take all the efforts of all the governments in the world and all the carbon capture projects, and they don't even show up above the noise in what we're doing. And they're bigger than most of the things we're talking about here. See, and that's why I'm focused on the concrete industry. It's the largest mass material movement on the planet.
Right.
Other than water, nothing moves more than rock. There's more rock. And it's already been paid for. The money's there, the infrastructure's there, and all governments need is to use their procurement power. So it's not even going to cost trillions of dollars. It's going to cost nothing. It's in fact going to save money because you're not transporting rock as far and that kind of thing.
Right.
So, you know, sort of to what Stephan was saying, we need to be more selective about where we're going to put our resources, because if we spread it out, we're not going to get anything done that's significant, and it has to be in the billions. It can't be in the millions or hundreds of millions. It has to be in the billions.
Right.
And that's where I see it going, as I see the global infrastructure in place already to implement utilizing this vehicle of concrete, which is already happening, which is the most used building material, to mitigate permanently carbon profitably.
Right.
Without spending any more money.
Yes, very good. So Julia, thank you so much for bringing us all here together. I'll ask each of you very quickly for one last question. Tomorrow, what would you ask each of us to do coming out of the energy surrounded by this summit? Would you like to start?
Talk to your elected official, your regulators, about thinking about procuring low carbon products and all the money they spent, like the AB 262 here in California, the Buy Green bill.
Very good.
That's the one thing. You know, get in the federal highway bill, get in whatever country you're from. Get the Department of Transportation specifying green materials. That's where the big volumes are.
Yep, very good. Steve?
So our call to action is, if there are folks who have protected areas that they're either setting up themselves or thinking about setting up, right? We would love to hear from you, because this product is, this Earth Pulse is still at the development stage where we want to hear the most important questions that you are dealing with. What are the biggest problems or the biggest key indicators that you're being asked for? Now we've talked to a bunch of folks already and we have some ideas, but the more folks we can talk to, the more we can make sure that this will be a platform that will really help people solve the problems that they have in promoting, in explaining and promoting the value of the protected areas that they're setting up and managing.
Wonderful. Stephan?
The self-serving answer is invest in FullCycle. but the reality is, honestly, get active in this space in whatever way feels right to you. So you may not have $1 million, but maybe you have 1 million Twitter followers. Start getting intentional about using your voice about this issue. I mean, it's the most important thing that we're facing today. And so really understand your power and start to use it towards something that really matters. And I can't think of anything else that matters more.
Very good. Thank you all so much for coming today to share your stories. We appreciate it. We're going to save a bit of time, and we will not have a formal QA session from the audience, but we will all be around all day, and as you can see, we love to talk. So please approach us with your questions, and thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's here for Jody and her amazing panel. We thank you guys so very, very much.